Have you ever stopped to think about what actually happens in that split second after you type a website into your browser and hit enter? It feels like magic, right? But it's not. It's a really clever system called DNS. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and decode how it all works by looking at the small but super powerful instructions that run the entire show, DNS records. All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with this idea of DNS as an address book. Then we'll dive into the core record types, the actual entries. We'll see how they all come together to build a complete online identity, and we'll finish up with some common mistakes to watch out for. Let's get into it.
So let's kick things off with a question about something you probably do dozens of times a day without a second thought. You want to go to a website, you type in a name you remember, something easy like example.com. But how does that actually get you anywhere?
I mean, really think about the scale here. We're not talking about thousands of servers. We're talking about millions of them all over the world. Your browser has to find the one single correct machine that's hosting the site you want. It's kind of like trying to find one specific house anywhere on Earth with no map. So how on earth does it work?
Well, the answer is the domain name system, or DNS. The easiest way to think about it is as the internet's giant global address book. Its main job, its whole purpose, is to translate the names we can easily remember, like example.com, into the number-based IP addresses that computers actually understand, like 93.184.216.34. Honestly, without DNS, we'd all have to memorize phone numbers for websites. No thank you. So if DNS is the address book, what are the actual entries inside? Well, that's where DNS records come in. They're all neatly stored in a simple text file on a server, and that file is called a zone file. Let's peek inside and see what we can find. At the end of the day, DNS records are just simple instructions. They're individual lines in that zone file, and each line gives one specific piece of information about a domain, like where to find the website or where to send the email. They are the individual contact entries in our massive digital address book. Now, there are a whole bunch of different record types out there, but we're going to focus on the 6 that you'll run into most of the time. These are the real workhorses of the internet. Let's break them down one by one. First up, the most important, the most fundamental record of them all, the A record. If our DNS zone file is an address book entry, the A record is the actual street address. It gives the most direct answer to the question, where is this website located? The A in A record literally stands for address. It creates a simple, direct connection. It maps a domain name, like example.com, straight to its IPv4 address, that classic number.number format you've seen before. It's a straight line from a name to a physical location on the internet. Now check this out. This is exactly what a computer sees when it does a lookup. It asks for example.com, and the DNS system replies with the A record, saying, go find it at 93.184.216.34. Simple as that. It's the most basic and common lookup there is. So why does this matter to you? Well, this is the essential step to get a website online. When you get web hosting, you're given an IP address for your server. The A record is how you tell the entire world, hey, mydomain.com lives at this specific IP address. Without it, your site is basically invisible. Okay, so the A record has a newer, more modern cousin, the AAA record. You can think of it like this. If the A record is a classic street address, the AAA record is the address for the futuristic cities we're building online. The AAA record, sometimes called a quad A record, does the exact same job as an A record, but it's for the newer IPv6 addresses. So why do we even need it? Well, the simple reason is that we were literally running out of the old IPv4 addresses. IPv6 gives us a nearly infinite supply, making sure the internet has room to grow for a long, long time. All right, next up is the CNAME record. Now, this one's a little different. Instead of pointing to a number, think of it more like a nickname or a shortcut. It's a way of saying, hey, this name is just an alias for this other main name. So a CNAME, which stands for canonical name, doesn't point to an IP address at all. It points one domain name to another domain name. A classic example is pointing www.example.com to just example.com. This is super useful because if your server's IP ever changes, you only have to update the A record for example.com, and the www alias just automatically follows along. It's all about working smarter, not harder. And this slide lays out that difference perfectly. On the left, you've got the A record, a direct shot from name to number. On the right, the CNAME record points www.example.com to example.com. So a browser has to do a second lookup on example.com to finally get the IP address. It's a two-step hop, but a very useful one. Okay, we've covered websites. Let's switch gears to something just as critical: email. How does an email sent to you@yourdomain.com find the right server out of all the billions of computers on the internet? Well, that's the job of the MX record. Think of it as the address for your digital mailbox. The MX, or Mail Exchange, record tells the internet which servers are set up to handle email for your domain. This is incredibly powerful because it lets you host your website on one server, but have your email managed by a totally different service, like Google Workspace or Zoho Mail. These records also have a priority number, which lets you set up backup mail servers, just in case. Now for one of the most flexible records in the toolkit, the TXT record. And yeah, just like the name says, it lets you store plain text. It sounds almost too simple, but this record is a powerhouse for all kinds of verification and security jobs. It's kind of like a public sticky note you can attach to your domain. And you use this all the time. Ever signed up for a service like Google Analytics and it asks you to add a weird-looking record to your DNS to prove you own the domain? Yep, that was a TXT record. More importantly, it's the backbone for email security stuff like SPF and DKIM, which helps stop spammers from faking emails from your domain. So it's a pretty big deal. And finally, we get to the record that kind of holds the whole system together, the NS record. If the zone file is the address book for your domain, the NS record tells the rest of the world where to find that address book. It points to the ultimate source of truth. The NS, or name server, record basically delegates authority. It says, hey, Internet, for any and all information about this domain, its A records, its MX records, the whole shebang, go talk to these specific servers. When you buy a domain name and set it up with your hosting provider, what you're really doing is changing the NS records to point to their name servers. Okay, so we've looked at all the individual players, but the real magic happens when you see how they all work together on a team. Let's see how these records combine to build a complete, functioning digital identity for one single domain. See, it's totally a team effort. For your domain, the A record points visitors to your website. The MX record makes sure your email goes to the right provider. The TXT records help prove you're you and keep your email secure. And the NS records are like the team captain, telling everyone where to find the playbook with all these rules. They all have a job to do. Knowing what these records are is one thing, but actually using them without causing a headache is another. So to wrap things up, let's quickly go over a few common mistakes people make so you can avoid them. All right, here are 3 big ones. First, mixing up CNAMEs and A records. Just remember, a CNAME has to point to another name, never to an IP address. Second, a missing MX record. If your email suddenly stops working, this is the very first place you should look. And third, CNAME chaining. That's when you point one CNAME to another CNAME. It can technically work, but it adds extra lookups and really slows things down for your visitors. So let's lock it in with one last super quick recap. The A and AAA records are your website street address. A CNAME is a handy nickname. The MX record is your digital mailbox. The TXT record is a verification note for security. And the NS record, that's the authoritative guide pointing to where all these rules live. And that's really it. These simple little lines of text are the invisible backbone that makes the entire internet work. They define your story online. So the question to leave you with is, are your DNS records telling the right one? Thanks for tuning in.